the NFL Fan Pub. It is an absolute privilege and a pleasure to be here with you tonight. We've got quite a lot to talk through, and I've made some notes from the week. Now, I suppose what we should do really is start with the Thursday night game. Obviously, we'll give everybody a few minutes to see who turns up tonight. I'm hoping I'm not going to be on my own. We are at that point of the season, though, where things start getting a bit more dicey, because if you've got fantasy football teams and they've struggled, then naturally this could be the turning point for your season. If you've started at 0-3, this is a critical week for you, because if you go to 0-4, your odds of making the playoffs in any league format are pretty slim. It's hard to do at that point. So even a win now matters hugely at this point for some of those teams. If it's Dynasty, maybe you're in rebuild mode already. It's possible. And you've got to start considering what you can do. It's always better, I think, to keep your powder dry if you're in Dynasty and wait till you get those last sort of 4 or 5 weeks of the season where teams are fighting for those playoff spots, and then dangle a couple of carrots out there to see what the best deal you can get ready ahead for the 2020 draft. Anyway, welcome aboard. The usual rules apply. Hi, thanks for joining us. It's a question and answer show. It is your show. I'll be talking about last week's games in a little bit more detail, Thursday night's games, and a lot of information we will share here tonight. If you have any questions, then don't be afraid to shoot them over. Please like and subscribe. This is critical to the channel, and we've got a lot to talk about. So Thursday night's game, Packers-Eagles. It was a classic Thursday night game. You don't have many of those, but it was an absolute brilliant game. I'm so pleased I stayed up for it. It was without a doubt one of my favourite games of the season so far. Aaron Rodgers' best game of the season. Nice to see the offense clicking on all cylinders. Quite a dirty game in some ways, some cheap shot hits and a few players injured. I think all the players are going to be okay. Good morning from Vancouver, Mark. Good to have you with us. Thanks very much. It's lovely to have Canada here. All hail Canada. I'd love to go up there sometime. I really must go to Canada. It's one of those dreams and ambitions of mine. I must fulfill that as part of my bucket list, I think. I must get up there. And it would be good to do it with people who are fantasy enthusiasts. So, you know, if that's you're offering me a free flight and board, Mark, I'll take it every day. Anyway, yeah, so Thursday night's game was classic. Rodgers was on top form, over 400 yards. It was just a great night. Devontae Adams did everything he could. Had 180 yards, his best receiving performance of his career. No touchdown to go with it, but fantastic in any format. Brilliant, really. That then suffered a turf toe injury. It seems to be minor, and there's quite a lot of time between now and their next game. So fingers crossed he'll be okay. It is a funny injury, that turf toe. Ask AJ Green about that one. It's always been notoriously difficult and not one of those nice injuries. But it was a great game. T.Y. Williams got injured in that one, but nothing serious. Thankfully, he's out, possibly with a couple of other players, and they all seem okay. So that's good. If we look back at last week's performance, so far from 20 results, we're on 19 correct. 19 correct from 20. Last week wasn't such a good hit rate for us, but it wasn't bad either. If we go through it very quickly, let's just look at the highlights. We got the Packers, Cowboys, Patriots, 49ers, Rams, and the Bears results correct. The ones that we got wrong, I think we can be forgiven for it. We got the Eagles result wrong the previous week, and we got the Ravens and Chiefs game wrong. I should have probably gone with my head, Chiefs over Ravens, but it was one of those results. Mind you, if you had Mark Ingram, who was on one of our lists early in the year, we talked about players to follow. He's having a very, very nice start to the fantasy season. Don't know if he can maintain that, but it should be quite interesting to see how he actually gets on. I guess the biggest news of last weekend, we did cover in a video during the week, but it's worth noting and starting off here, hence the Saquon Barkley card to begin this week's show. Injured. He said tonight that, from what I understand anyway, the original timetable for him to get back into the field was somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks logically. He says he's going to beat the timetable. Now, that's tricky. There's a lot of chance of a re-aggravation with this one, and we'll have to see how it actually plays out. So I've got a few concerns over that. Thank you for joining us. We've got a few more people now joining. It's good to see. I know we're at a critical part of the fantasy season. If you've started 0-3 in any of your leagues, this is a must-win game. I mean, it's especially a must-win in redraft. Hello there. Nice to have you with us. Money, the old money's back. Let's have money here. Always nice to have a bit of money lingering around, I always think. So good to have you here. Got any fantasy questions? Please, guys, shoot them over. That's what the show's for. So, howdy. Hello, Shani. Nice to have you here. Yeah, so we've had it was a good Thursday night game. We've got some information coming through. I'm going to talk about that now. Here we go. With the buys and the McLaren injury, don't disappear. With the McLaren injury, my team starts itself. If London got a team, would you jump ship on your current team? And what do you think would be a good name? Oh, God, that's quite an interesting question. Yeah, got some news on McLaren. I mean, he's out for tonight. Just so you know, I heard that report just before I came on. He's inactive for tonight's game, so bear that in mind. Hopefully that doesn't affect your lineup too much. Hopefully you've accounted for that already. If we had a London franchise, no, I wouldn't change teams at all. I think this is something the NFL is acutely aware of, actually. You see, I've always been a Rams fan, but every year I pick the Rams, obviously, and then I go with a team that I follow for that year as well, like a hunch, just an underdog team. This year I'm following the Browns, and they look like an underdog team right now. I'm a bit concerned about them, but you follow them and you have a bit of fun. So if a London team came along, yeah, sure, I would probably go and see a couple of the games, but it wouldn't necessarily make me jump ship at all, not at all. I think a good name would be the London Bulldogs or something along those lines. Would make a great team name, to be honest with you. So that, for me, would probably be what would happen. A lot of fans, I think, are very similar. We've got our teams. We're not easy to jump ship on them. If you're a loyal fan and not a plastic one, as we often are, you tend to stick. So, that's how we often operate. So, let's have a little look then at this week's matchups. We've got the Browns versus the Ravens. You can't think it can be anything other than a Ravens win for this week. The Chargers play the Dolphins. I don't know when the Dolphins are going to win. I just don't know, to be honest with you. I obviously have to back the Chargers here. The Chiefs versus the Lions. That should be a win to the Chiefs, who are rolling nicely. You've got the Panthers versus the Texans. That's too close to call. And then you've got the Patriots, Bills, both 3-0 teams. But I think the Patriots are just too powerful for the Bills. But we'll see. I've got a few things I want to run through with you. Julian Edelman is on a bit of a limited snap count for tonight, so bear that in mind. What that actually equates to, we're not sure at this stage. I suspect somewhere between maybe 7 to 12 snaps, maybe as high as 15. They'll probably ease him into it depending on what they need for this week. They may need him, actually, so we'll see how that plays out. We've already talked about Saquon Barkley beating his timetable. Not sure how realistic that is. Rex Burkhead, as far as the information I had before coming on the show, if anything's changed, please shout it out, guys, is still expected to play. So that much we do know. And also we've got Mark Andrews is supposed to be suiting up tonight, the Baltimore Titans. Again, how realistic that's actually going to be, I don't know. I'm just going to check to see if we've got any questions coming through. They are the lifeblood of the show. Your subscriptions are critical, and we know it's going to be quieter now because we're at that time of the year, but we're going to just keep going anyway. I'm trying my best to locate the questions. Let's have a look. Let's see what we've got. I think we've answered everything that's come through. We've got some nice people commenting, so we really appreciate that. Thank you for the thumbs up. That's very appreciated. It does help because the videos, unfortunately, one of the way that YouTube work, it is a metrics, it is a bit of a system. You have to get thumbs up. You have to get people viewing it. It's all part of the game. Even a thumbs down, strangely, works in your favour because it's just interaction, and that's just the way it works. So thank you for those. We've now got 5 people joining us. I'm hoping that at some stage in the next 10 or 15 minutes, we'll have about 15 to 20 joining us, as we will be online live for an hour, unless we have nobody here. So we're now up to 6, so it is climbing quite rapidly. Get your questions in. Don't be afraid. No question is not going to be answered. It is your show. We will try to cover off everything that we can. Coming back to some of the games very quickly, and I'll cover off a couple of questions that people have sent in. Talked about the Patriots. Bills should be an easy win. We've got Raiders versus the Colts. For me, that's too close to call. Not sure on that one. You got the Redskins versus the Giants. Daniel Jones last week was absolutely fantastic. That's why we had faith in him on this podcast. That's why we didn't slate him off. We don't think the pick was necessarily a great pick at 6, but you have to give quarterbacks time. The one thing about quarterbacks in the NFL is it's an unknown quantity until they get experience in the field. Sometimes it's very easy to jump on a bandwagon and say they're rubbish. You have to give him a bit of time. He may end up being a pack quarterback, that's all. But after 1 week, he's outscored Baker Mayfield in 1 week of football. That is pretty remarkable. Just had a question come through, and I'm going to try and get to it. Here we go. Let's have a little look what we've got. From money, it's Gorman, Devontae Freeman, or Montgomery for standard. I'm sticking to my man Montgomery all day long. I can't trust Gorman. I'm sorry. His track record is absolutely abysmal. And Devontae Freeman just worries me to death. It's just a matter of time. It's just You know, he was serviceable last week, but that's all. I think David Montgomery's just climbing. He started off with about 6 fantasy points, then it went up to 12, now it's at 14. I think he's starting to roll, and I think you've got to follow that through. He's starting to look better and better each week. Yeah, so we talked about the Redskins, Giants, bit of love for Daniel Jones, deserves it, and this is a week they can win. So I'm going to pick the Giants to win and go back to 2-2, which is pretty remarkable, really. Then we have the Titans versus the Falcons. That's too close to call. It's an interesting one because this week Devontae Freeman has got to face the Titans defense. Look legit. I mean, if that defense was with the Chiefs, how close would the Chiefs go to winning the Super Bowl? I wonder. It's a fascinating defense they've developed there. It's just the rest of the offense now is letting it down just at the wrong time. We've then got I've forgotten who's playing the Rams this week, but I picked the Rams to win, so I've forgotten who we're playing. But I fancy their chances so much, to be honest with you, this week. We then have the Seahawks versus the Cards. I've got the Seahawks to win that one, and it's going to be a bit of an interesting game, that one, I think. No Penny for tonight, it would appear, for the Seahawks. So it looks once again like Carson's backfield. Disappointing, if I'm honest. From a fantasy perspective, Carson has really, really let me down. I mean, we didn't have him in the bold predictions or anything like that, but we were expecting better things from him. He's certainly going to have another opportunity tonight. You better take it. That fumbleitis that he's having at the moment better disappear. We have had one of your questions come through. Thank you for that. Let's have a little look at what you've said. And that comes from Shani. Thank you, Shani. Jones, New York Giants beginner's luck or the Giants march on? Well, I think they march on this week, Shani, but after that it does definitely get a lot harder for him. He's a mobile quarterback. It's a cheat sheet for fantasy. It's a cheat sheet in the NFL for a short period of time till NFL defenses catch up with you. The problem now, of course, is the Giants don't have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. So my concern tonight would be simple. If you're the coordinator, you're not worried about Gorman. Gorman's done nothing. If you look at his record in his NFL career, it is quite poor. You're not worried about him. So I think what you do is you go after the quarterback. You take more chances, more blitzes, more packages where players will come up, look to threaten to blitz, then drop back, break up the zones. I suspect we'll see a lot more of that tonight. Thank you for those that are watching in. Numbers are climbing quite quickly. Thank you. Keep thumbs up. Keep your questions coming, and we certainly have a few questions to answer now. So please keep them coming in. I'll do my best to get to every question tonight. We will shoot for the full for the full hour. It is your hour. Money asks this. Thanks, Money. Should I start Terrell Williams over Edelman because of the snap count? I think you have to. I've got to roll Edelman in one league. I've got a strange situation where you don't have a lot of depth in 16-man leagues, and I'm probably going to have to start Edelman even on the limited snap count over Emmanuel Sanders because I'm very concerned about the matchup tonight. That matchup worries me about Sanders, so I'd rather take the limited snap count, but that's a very unique situation. So I think Terrell Williams is the route to go, to be perfectly honest with you. Let's have a look at some of your other questions that are coming in. Thank you for those. I grabbed Disley last week, this is from Mark, and feel I got lucky. Picked Herndon, the Jets tight end on waivers. Do you see good things out of him? Well, he certainly has proved it the first 3 weeks of the season. Shani on here, actually, in one of the leagues, has got him and done a good job out of him. I mean, we often say on this channel, for good reasons, that tight ends generally are packed tight ends is the issue. It's very hard for them to score big points. Most of them are between 80 and 100 fantasy points every single year in standard. There'll be a few tight ends, 2 or 3 each year that are more than can more than hold their own. Against some of the wide receivers. But this year, I mean, really, it started poorly. My original pick, my original pick on my bold prediction list was Kittle. I've been disappointed. But not because there's been touchdowns pulled back in one game. He could have been much higher on the list. It's just been a bad start. I've had to abandon him in one team. I've had to go against him and sell him. I managed to get Juju Smith-Schuster for Kittle, so I was quite happy to do that. Take a roll the dice with that situation. It's not ideal. Both of them have different issues. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. I think Disley could be a tight end that pulls out of the Packers bigger numbers than his value initially. Seattle don't have many people to throw to, and he's certainly getting his share of red zone looks. So quite a lot to like, actually. It's a very good question. Thank you very much for sending it. Let's get back to your questions because there are a few there. That's what they're there for. Please do ask them. Sony Michelle, Darrell Williams, half-point PPR. Thank you for your hard work. Really appreciate that. Thank you, David. Yeah, we're going to be we're chasing a particular thing here, a milestone actually on this channel. We're trying to get above 4,000 watch hours. It's a big milestone on YouTube. We're closing in on it, and we can't get there without your help. So we really appreciate that. It's an interesting question that you posed. Let's just take a look at your question one more time. Sonny Michel or Darrell Williams half point PPR. Well, they said tonight actually, David. The New England said they're going to feed the ball to Sony Michel, so I'm going to go that route tonight. I think they will. I think that's your opportunity. I think the other chap will get chances too because they have a banged up backfield. Damian Williams is everything we said he would be on this podcast, a bust. Hasn't really lived up to the billing, has he, so far? So this chap has a chance, but I think tonight Sonny Michel will be given absolute free reign. I will come to your questions. Keep them coming in. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the people watching. We're up to 8 people watching. That's really good. Let's hope we can get above. We're on 9 now. Try and get above 10. Do share this if you can with some of your friends. Get them involved in the program. Really need your help. Want to grow the channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. I just want to quickly get to a few of the other games, if I may, for tonight. Let me just quickly get to the ones we haven't covered off. I think we've covered those last few here. We've got the Jags versus the Broncos. Too close to call for me. That's a tough one. I think the Jags probably edge it, but it's a really difficult one. Vikings versus the Bears. I'm all with the Bears here. The Vikings have been playing an interesting tactic so far this season. They seem to have been to reduce mistakes from Kirk Cousins, limited throwing, relying on Dalvin Cook. Well, this is a different kind of situation. You are going to have to throw tonight. So I suppose an uptick for the receivers for Minnesota Vikings. Going to be tough for Dalvin Cook, but he has been elite so far this year, exactly as we hoped for on the podcast. And then that leaves us the Cowboys versus the Saints. Well, I have to go with the Cowboys. They're on a roll, looking good. And then we have the Bengals versus the Steelers. Sorry, I have to give the Steelers the edge in that one. I do apologise, just thinking back on the notes what I was going to say about that. But it's a close one. Let's just quickly get to your questions because there's still quite a few of you on there. Let's have a little look. Let's see where we are. Okay, let's have a look. Thank you very much for tuning in. Right, so we've got Tom Godwin as well. Thank you. Right, Godwin for this week, David. Thank you. Tough one. Not really sure that I can see much value in him this week. I mean, if he's the best option you've got to roll the dice. Do you have any other options available to you? If you do, you might want to consider those. Which 3 running backs to start? This is from Dennis. Which 3 running backs to start out of the 4? Lindsay, Freeman, Gorman, and Darrell Williams. Okay, well, I think you've got to start Lindsay and Darrell. And if I had to pick out Gorman and Freeman, then I'll have to take Freeman. Those would be the 3 that I would start. I would leave Gorman on the bench. I don't trust him. Until we see what he's actually going to do. He's normally poor. I mean, let's be honest. If you get 30, 40 yards out of him and 1 or 2 targets in the air, I think that's what you're going to look for from him tonight. The matchup is favourable, sure, but I think they're going to come after. They're going to do a lot of blitzing, and I think that's going to affect the running game quite a lot, to be perfectly honest with you. Is Gorman worth a flex start because of the workload? Well, this is a good question. Thank you for it. Don't trip. It's the first time we've had you on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Don't trip. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Thank you. I'm not. If you've got better options, I'm going to say no. I think you have to see what the guy can do. This week might be his most favourable matchup for sure. But can you really trust him, given his track record in the NFL? If you look back at the stats, it's pretty appalling, actually. He's been nothing but an absolute bench warmer, really. Poor flex play at best. 5-6 points, fantasy standard maybe. And that's a worry, isn't it, when you think he's going to get the load? I mean, logically, you have to accept that the Redskins, tonight, to be perfectly honest with you, they're likely to want to try and take away the running game. I mean, and force the ball into Daniel Jones's hand, take away the running lane. He did well as a runner the first week, but I'm not sure I can see too much out of it myself. But we'll see. There are more questions. Thank you for those. Keep them coming. Kenyon Drake or Darrell Williams, 100%. Thank you very much for the question. Can't see your name. We need them on this channel. That's very, very important. Very, very important. And we really need that support. And we thank you for tuning in and watching us because it's absolutely critical for us as a show. We are trying to, as I say, aim for a certain point. So thank you for all those watching in. Right, we've covered off the games. Let's go into some of the key questions for this week that have come in. As I said, Rex Burkhead expected an expanded role tonight, actually, and expected to play. Saquon said he will get ahead of the timetable for those that have only just joined us. Julian Edelman on is at a snap count. We're not quite sure what that's going to mean. It's probably somewhere between 8 and 15 touches. Or, sorry, I should say snaps. It's going to be very limited. Mark Andrews should suit up. Damian Amendola, probably looking quite doubtful, to be perfectly honest with you. Terry McLaurin, I've already said, will not play. Expected to play a little while ago. That he's out. Melvin Gordon will play, but again will be on a snap count. It will be a bit like the Ezekiel Elliott situation from a couple of weeks back. Don't expect a lot from him this week. You're talking a very low amount of snaps, if any. May end up actually only being used in emergencies, is the exact words coming out of the Chargers camp. That is quite considerable. I've also got to add that it's just filtered through for definitive news. Devon Singletary is out for this week. I think that's probably for the best, his hamstring. I'm hoping he's back next week, is my hope. I'm glad he's not playing. I'm glad he's not playing the Patriots this week. I want him to recover fully. Let's have a look what we've got coming in. There are some messages. Please do keep sending them in. We really love them, so thank you. We've got one here. Oh, yeah, thank you, Dennis. You said thanks for Freeman over Gorman. Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, I think it's sensible play, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it'll stand you in good stead for this week. Now, let's talk about fantasy for a minute before we continue on with a couple of these bits before more questions come in. This is a big week for anybody in fantasy. Started off the show in the same way, discussed it. If you're 0-3 this week, this is a critical win week, particularly in redraft. Dynasty is a different ball game, but in redraft or any format, really PPR, any format, it's a critical week for you. You go 0-4 and your team is in crisis mode. That will mean that you're going to have to start selling pieces off because your only hope then is to roll the dice. So it's a big week. A win now can be massive. It can give you a chance. If you're sitting at 1-2, yeah, sure, you can survive a week even if you lose. But your hope is to get back to 2-2 and move into the next two games. I always look at it in 2 game stretches because the fantasy season works in 13 weeks. The first week is an important week to try and get ahead of the curve. But once you get started, you're always trying to at least be even or relevant going into the final week, so you've got a chance to make the playoffs. We often say in our leagues, if you get to 7-6, you've got every chance of making the playoffs, which is often the case. And the way we do our leagues is it's always based on whoever scores the highest if there's a tiebreaker. So that always goes to the team with the best players. I think it's the fairest thing. You wouldn't be scoring well if you weren't a good team, would you? So that's the way we tend to look at it. But this is now becoming a critical week. And the questions now should start turning towards who to sell and why and what to do to balance your team. So always bear that in mind. Let's have a look at some of your questions that are still filtering in. Thank you very much for those. It's very important to get them in. We've still got plenty of time. We're still rolling for another 20-odd minutes, 30 minutes. This is your show. Please do send them in. We've got a question here again from Dennis. Thank you, Dennis. Flex. WT. Who would you start? Ertz or Samuel? Flex. You've got a wide receiver or a tight end. Oh, that's quite close. Tough one. I probably... Well, hasn't... Ertz played at the weekend, didn't he, on Thursday night game within the Eagles play over the Pack. Has already played. So... he got about 7 points, so you haven't really got a choice in that one. I'm sorry, Dennis. You're going to have to start. Debo in that case. Sorry, buddy. It does happen sometimes. This is one of those things you always try to bear in mind what you can do. I hate that Thursday night games give me one of the biggest headaches in fantasy football because notoriously I'm not very lucky on Thursday night. Although this week I had a great bit of luck because I started. That's okay. Don't worry, Dennis. It happens. But thank you for the question anyway. Keep them coming in. It's your show. We will keep shooting till no one is online, as they say, till the hour is up. So we really appreciate having those that are on board sending through their questions. I had a good bit of luck on Thursday night in one league because I had Rodgers and Adams in the same team as a stack, which was very handy because so far they've both been pretty poor, really. Adams was okay, but Rodgers has been, they're playing a different kind of football up there to get the wins, which is fine. But it was a good week, and that particularly as it was a full-point PPR kind of league, I had a fantastic night. I think I ended up with some crazy amount of points from Adams and some crazy amount of points from Rodgers because he went over 400 and there was a bonus for that. So very lucky, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, it does happen. Thursday nights I'm not normally notorious, but my favourite, I'm very good on Monday nights, and that's continued this year. I'm known as Misty Monday Night in fantasy circles because when the chips are down, I've only got one player to come. They always seem to turn up big for me on that night, and I always seem to nick a win. And that trend has continued this week. I mean, a couple of great results where got a good question coming in. I'll have a look at that. TS, thank you. I'll have a look at your question in just a moment. Thank you very much for that. If you're new to the channel, do like and subscribe. Very important. Good to have you on board. We are doing this show every single week. We are a close, tight-knit show. We've got a steady, loyal following that's constantly growing. And we have big plans for this channel moving forward into next year. Part of those plans involve one of our goals, which is to get above that 4,000 watch hours. So everybody who's watching with me tonight and helping with me, it goes a long way, trust me, towards making that dream a reality for us. And it is a big deal for us, because then we can move to a new phase of our podcasting. So thank you. Let's have a look at your questions. We've got some good ones coming in. Thank you very much for those. Will Disley, this is from TS, or Mark Andrews at tight end PPR. I'm going Will Disley this week, TS. Mark Andrews is suiting up, but he is banged up. So I'm going to pick Disley over him until we get a real full SP on it. I know the Ravens game should be quite interesting, but I quite like the Seattle situation. I think Will Disley has a good chance for some red zone looks. So I'm going with him. This is Carl Cash. Got a few names there with either money or cash. I like those. Pick one. Thanks to have you some new people with us. Thank you very much for that. Do like and subscribe, guys. By subscribing, you'll always be updated if you ring the bell to any videos coming out, and we will always answer your questions. You'll notice that here. So thank you very much for it. Pick one. Sony, Adrian Peterson, and Darrell Williams, standard leagues. Has to be Sony tonight, Cash. Has to be Sony. They're going to feed him the ball. You've got to back him this week. I think it's a good situation. I am concerned about Sony long term as the season wears along. But this tonight, I think, is a great opportunity for him. New England, I mean, look at the matchups, the games they've got. This is probably the hardest one they've got over the next 3 weeks. And even then, I still fancy them heavy favourites for me tonight. But we'll see how it actually plays out. Now, let's look at more questions still floating in. Dennis, again, thank you, Dennis. Great to have that. I'm still surprised about your reaction about Gorman. He is the Giants' only RB. I get it that their offense sucks, but I'm really worried about the matchups for Lindsay and Freeman. Horrible so far. Yes, but I get that, but Lindsay has a pedigree, really. If you think about it logically, Lindsay's pedigree is he plays tough. Who would have thought what he would have done last week? Would you back against him? He plays like a heart of a champion, and if you look back on our videos, you have to go back a year for this, we predicted Philip Lindsay before the season started. On our deep rookie flyer list, to give you some idea of some of the players we've touched on this show, is we don't pick loads. We don't pick loads here. We talked about him, and I talked about him as the perfect 5th round pick for last year in that show, and the loyal followers on this channel will tell you that. And you know, he's got the heart of a champ, so I wouldn't dismiss him. Now, Gorman pedigree is poor. Are you willing to risk your fantasy game, and it could be massive, being in the flex could be a critical moment for your team? I'd still stick Philip Lindsay in there. If anybody's going to find a touchdown for Denver tonight, it'll be Philip Lindsay. And don't be surprised if he rips off a long play, and maybe with a touchdown, because he's that kind of player. You know, I would never doubt him. He is one of those guys. And last week proved how good he really is. So, yeah, let's have a look at some more questions that are rolling in. Thank you very much for those. There are some great questions. This is from Mark. Do you think Cleveland can stay in this? This is an AFC matchup. So I could see a grinder type game. I hope Lamar Jackson takes a good shot or two. He's going to run the ball. Yeah, you know what? It's a very good shout, actually. I mean, yeah, this is a must. I think this is a must-win game for Browns. I do fancy, unfortunately, I do fancy their opponents this week, but it's a must-win game. They have to beat Ravens. They have to beat them. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about this. This early in the season, it's critical to get the win. If they do that and get back to relevance, 2-2. They're suddenly back in the hunt and people are going to start talking about them in the right way. Baker has got a lot of critics on his shoulder. I appreciate there's a number of reasons why, and guess our expectations for him probably too high, mine included. I probably, you know, you go for the moon, you sometimes miss. It happens. But we'll see. I still think he can turn it round. I think they're capable. And they've certainly, it could be a grinding game, and it could be closer than people think, for sure. The Ravens look really interesting, and I'm very interested to see what they do tonight. The key, I think, to controlling the Ravens has got to be the Browns have got to almost sell out on stopping the run and take risks man-to-man on coverage. That is going to require some ballsiness, but I think that's what you've got to do against them, and see if the rookie quarterback can, or where, not rookie quarterback, but you know what I mean, whether sophomore can actually do it this week. We'll see. But it's going to be an interesting game. I'd like to see the Browns defense turn up and we could have a really good game on our hands tonight. Thank you for all those tuning in. Thank you for the likes. That's really appreciated. They really help. And keep subscribing, please. Thank you very much. Let's go Browns. Good man. I still have Hyde as an alternative. Yeah, well, you know, you got my thoughts on it. I mean, Hyde has got some value, of course, because of the offense that he's in. But, you know, he hasn't really done a lot this year, so a bit concerned about that. I hope Mark might be right. I mean, maybe that's the thing to do here. Mark might have a better idea than myself, and I'm not saying that you know, I've not got any ideas about it. I think he may have a point, but I'm still going to stick with my original assumption here. Go with what I've said first off. Hyde's Hyde. I think we know what we get with him. It is a little Jekyll and Hyde. Let's be honest about it. I mean, you know, he's got that kind of look to him, hasn't he? Sometimes. Let's bring up your questions. There's still more coming in, and that's fantastic. Right, here we go. Flex question here. Oh, hold on before we get to that. Good argument. So I have to think. Oh, well, this is quite interesting. A good argument from Dennis. So I have to think about Freeman, Gorman, or Hyde. Okay, that's fair. I'd still. It's ironic, really, that I'm going to say this. So I probably would go Freeman. I think it's the better matchup of the three, if I'm honest. Who's your pick for the Bears? I'm going Bears. It was early on the show there, Money. I'm back in the Bears this week. We've had a great roll, actually. Out of 30 picks, we are 26. Sorry, apologies. We are 25 from 30 over 3 weeks. I think that's pretty good going, actually. So if you're a betting man, taking the games as we said who would win them, that's pretty good going, I think. So that's who I'm going with. And I fancy David Montgomery this week will start to show a bit more of his pedigree. It should be a good game, actually. Where do we go from here for Gurley? Oh, well, that's a good question. Come to that in a minute. I've got... this is from... Lee Hits, I think it is. I hope I've pronounced that right. Fournette or Darrell Williams, running back 2, PPR. Lindsay, Terrell Williams, or Sutton, standard flex, pick 1. Standard flex, pick 1. Wow. Not touching Fournette, don't like him. He never does enough, hasn't had any touchdowns. Darrell Williams, it's more of a spot play if you had nothing better. I'm going to stick with Lindsay. That's who I'm going to pick for you there. I'm going to go Lindsay out of that group. It's a good group. I mean, I'll tell you what would be close there. I'd go Darrell Williams would be quite close. So if you're rolling the dice, having a think about it, it's one of those two. But Lindsay just has a pedigree. It is a tough matchup. I'm not going to deny. So if you went Darrell Williams, I wouldn't blame you in that one. Well, Gurley, great question, Shani. I think what we've highlighted in the show was accurate about Gurley in terms of that there was a problem. We've noted the problem since last year. My concern now for Gurley is the breakdown. The breakdown, it's going to come. I think is the issue. I'm worried about that breakdown. I love the player. I'm a Rams fan. For those that follow the show, I'm wearing a Saints shirt because I love Kamara and it's fantasy. I think you can get away with whatever you like, really. And I'm worried. I'm massively worried about Gurley moving forward. I feel the breakdown will come, and when it comes, we're going to see a bit of Malcolm Brown, and we're going to see the man that no one's talking about, and that's Darrell Henderson. Just be ready, because I'm absolutely convinced that run will come. It probably might not be till week 8. We might be quite deep into the fantasy season before we see the first signs or flickers of light from Darrell Henderson. By that stage, Gurley could be an afterthought. He's done okay. He's been all right as a flex play, but you picked him, as they say, you pick him in round 2. You want more from him than flex play. I'm getting worried about the touches. I'm getting worried about the tentativeness. I'm getting worried about the use. I think there's a lot to be worried about, to be honest with you. So it's really a buy player. It's a sell player for me. I mean, if you can sell him in a league, you go ahead and sell him. Use that information. You know, if you get lucky and he has a good game, you sell on it. Because I think if you're being honest, you can definitely see the tentativeness. It's spelt out in the situations where he is running to the sidelines. He's going out of bounds quicker. He's not looking for the hits or the contact. I don't blame him, but I'm really worried about him. And I'm just waiting for the first knee flare-up, which is inevitable, I'm afraid. It just seems to be coming, and that's the worry. Right, let's have a look here. We've got more questions. Darrell Williams, a big topic on Darrell Williams and Terrell Williams, or Hardman for flex. Now, that's a great shout here. This is interesting for Mark. Another Mark. Thank you, Mark. Welcome aboard. Do like and share. We've got 11 people watching now, so that's fantastic to have 11 in the room. I think that's amazing at this time of the year, so really appreciate that. Darrell, Terrell, or Hardman in the flex PPR. Now, obviously, I think I'd go Hardman because it's pretty clear for the moment with Tyreek Hill out. Hardman's getting some long bomb shots. They're working out for him. I think the matchup this week looks pretty favourable if we look at the matchup, and we should always start on the matchups just to get a flavour for it. Let's see who we've got. So let's see where our Chiefs are playing the Lions. So you've got to fancy that. It's quite a good situation, to be honest with you. So I'd probably roll the punches with that, and that's who I would pick out of there. So that's the guy I'd go with. Thanks a lot for your channel. Well, really appreciate that, Dennis. Thank you very much. We are small, but we've been grinding for 3 years. You know, we picked out some big players on this channel. Patrick Mahomes, for example, as an example. We picked out the bust from last year, Le'Veon Bell and Fournette, before the season even started, and weeks before anybody talked about them as busts. They're pretty bold predictions. Plenty more good ones as well that we've done in the past. I picked David Johnson when it is his career year. I'm all over this man tonight as the running back to own in all formats for this season. That's beginning to look more and more accurate as the weeks are going by. Although Dalvin Cook, if you look at Dalvin Cook's numbers, he's leading fantasy at the moment. We had him on our bold prediction list. So as the breakout for this year. So they're all there for you to see. We don't hide behind anything, and we're the first to say if we get it wrong. You'll notice that next year we will recap the videos. We'll be one of the first videos myself and Al do. And talking of Al, he's swanning it up in America right now watching live games, the lucky devil. Well done to him. Hope he's well. Hope he's tuning in at some point and is watching the show. I'm sure he might at some point. He's probably watching the game tonight, to be honest. Al and myself will be getting together within the next couple of weeks once he returns. And me and Al will be doing a show together. So don't worry. I've been doing this to keep everything rolling and moving along because Al deserves a well-earned rest. And I'm really excited to hear some of the tales from abroad. So it should be quite good. We've got from Mark, you guys are the best. See you next week, gentlemen. Good luck. Well, thank you, Mark. It's really appreciate having you on board. Glad we could help you out. That's Mark Vella. Thanks, fella. Mark Vella, the fella. There you go. So well done. We've got Mark Lewis. Do you like James Conner on Monday Night Football against the Bengals? Think he could be the best RB on the week? No, I don't. I don't like James Conner at all. Haven't liked him all year. He's on the bus list. He's on my bus list for this year. He's a player I don't like. I do like the matchup for Monday night. I'm not going to deny that. I think it's a great matchup for him. If there was ever a week where he's got to make it count, it's got to be this one. But let me tell you something. Let me ask you this question, right? What if you look back after this week and he's still not producing? Have a look back at our bus list. That's the concern. And you'll see why, because we've talked about his backups behind him and what might happen with that offense. And I think we're seeing more and more signs of that. But this is his week. You are right to identify it. He has a great chance. He better prove you right as being the running back of the week. And I hope you're right about that. But I'm massively concerned about him. Here's a good question here from Shane. Hi, Shane. Good to have you back. This week, who do you feel is a must start and who do you feel is a must sit? Well, there are so many must starts, to be honest with you. You never not start your studs. Studs are players that are leading the league. Those are players inside the top 20 of their position. You never not start them. You have to put them in. It's always a debate of those that are outside the top 20. Those are the ones you've really got to decide who are your flex positions. And a lot of these players are being mentioned tonight if you consider it. So I never not start my studs. That's the first rule of it. You can debate quarterbacks, you can debate defences, you can debate tight ends, but when you're talking about key players, don't debate them. The question will always be in the minutiae detail. So that's honestly how you've got to look at it. Not trying to avoid the question, but there's a lot of must starts. There's equally a lot of players you've got to put in the question mark about who to start. If you've got a question over a few players of those, throw it in. Let's have a look at this. Oh, thank you very much, Mark. And Androtti, I think that's spelled Andriotti. Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate the sub. They are massive to us. Don't forget to like the bell because we are here every week. We do a lot of videos during the build up towards the fantasy season. We'll go off air at the end of the fantasy season, week 16. We plan on doing these shows every week to help everybody as much as we can. Then next we will have a break, and then next year we're coming back. What we're going to do is the first year we've done this, we believe we're good enough now for a draft guide. I think our pedigree, our grinding has shown that. We believe we now are the kind of podcasters who we are very good at picking up players ahead of the curve. So because of that, that's the kind of information people want. And we were very, very strong on the rookie draft. For those that know the channel, you know the players we picked out. Those are the guys we're all talking about right now as contributors in your fantasy leagues. Players you should own. So definitely something to look forward to. So thanks very much for that. Really appreciate that. Let's have a look at the questions coming in. So thanks for the sub. Dennis here. I streamed kicker Jay Myers and Silk's defense. Do you like those picks as streamers? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, good picks for this week. What's not to like? I mean, Myers is right up there. The defense, Seattle defense, is always what it does. It seems to do really well. So well done. Kittle for Juju trade or keep Kittle. Well, I got lucky, didn't I? I mean, Shani knows this. I think in a week I got away with a good trade there. I mean, I managed to trade Kittle. I mean, I think it's a risk. I do like Kittle for this year. I still think he'll do well. But you can't turn Juju Smith-Schuster down when the Steelers realistically are going to be throwing the ball all year long, frankly. They're 0-3 for a reason. They're going to have to throw all the time, and he's going to be the main beneficiary of it. He should always get 8 to 10 targets every single week. Yeah, so he's contributing quite well. So obviously in a team that's struggling, it's a good call. You can always find a pack tight end. So if I could do that deal, I'd take that deal. Yeah, but both come with risks, no doubt. I'm not saying for 1 minute that it's a steal, because it's not necessarily, because frankly, Kittle can come on and do well. We've got another subbed as well. Thank you, Dennis. Really appreciate those subs, guys, because, you know, I don't think people realise we're a small podcasting channel. We work really hard, myself and Al. We put a lot of energy and effort into the podcast all the time. We want you all to do well. We mean that. And we have never been unafraid, even with the people we draft against, to give out our information absolutely ahead of the curve. Now, we'll always do that every year, but next year we're going to make people have that. They can buy that information months ahead of when we're producing some other videos. I mean, months ahead. You can have it ready for your rookie drafts. You can have it ready in all formats. We're going to talk about all league formats in that draft guide, how to draft in 10, a 12, a 14, a 16-man team, give you all the tips necessary to have a chance to dominate. Most important thing, I think, missed in a lot of draft guides, who to avoid. You know, some players won't even come on my draft guide. I won't even talk about them. They will be crossed off, because if I don't trust them, if I don't believe in them, I'm not picking them. I don't think they've got any value. Al believes that some players always have an intrinsic value. I get that, but I don't. So for me, in what I want to produce, I'm going to circle some players and avoid them. And we'll see how that plays out. But the last few years, it's looked almighty good, frankly. So let's have a look at what we've got coming in. There are more questions. Right. Subs as well, thank you. I've got, maybe you can reply to my IDP question only if possible. Okay, what was your IDP question, Dennis? Do send it back in. Have I missed your question? Let me have a look. Streamed kickers and still, do you like those? Yeah, I did actually say I do like your IDP. I do like your IDP question, but which one was it? And I see that Al's here. Oh, here we go. I've just found it. Need more help regarding streaming IDP. I chose Thomas Davis. That's good. Or would you rather choose Osweiler, R. Smith, Van Der Esch, L. Davis, Zed Cunningham, or Hitchens? Okay, I'll tell you who I'm going to take out of those. That's a good question. I've got a couple of IDP leagues. I'm going to go with Van Der Esch for this week. Out of that list, that's a big list of players. I'm taking Van Der Esch for this week. That's my hunch on your list. So pen that in and come back and have a look next week and give me some stick if I'm not close to right on that one. Because there you go. Al doesn't know that I know a lot more about IDP than a lot of people think. I do like it. It's an interesting format, but it's not my favourite because the problem with IDP, it's so changeable and more changeable than fantasy, and sometimes so wild that it really doesn't help us. But thank you for the question, Dennis. Watching from the NRG Stadium in Houston. Big shout out to Al in the NRG Stadium in Houston, and good luck to your Cowboys tonight. I'm hoping for a big game from Ezekiel Elliott, so have a chat with him, won't you, Al, for me? See if we can get that on the cards. I've just been waiting for him to explode with his 25 plus touches and hope that this is the week. Now, we've got about 17 minutes left, gentlemen. Please get your questions in. And it's amazing to think that we're being watched from the NRG Stadium. That's quite a nice. Shame they can't put that on the big screen. Give a big shout out to to Dallas. That would be great, wouldn't it? So, yeah, please get your questions in. It's been brilliant tonight because we've had some great subscribers, new subscribers to the channel. That really helps us. We are ever building towards the future. And we've got a lot to talk about. I know we keep saying it, give little hints every week, but we really are. I can let a little cat out of the bag. Little website on the horizon is coming. We'll tell you more about that later. VN says, can you change the background? Yes, I will change. Thank you very much, your son here, Shani. Yes, we'll change the background. I kept this up because it was the easiest thing to do for fantasy football. It's relevant for a backdrop, and obviously you don't need to see the rest of the room for obvious reasons. So I didn't want to just leave that up. But you are right. It's a good point, actually. Well raised by our youngest member. Welcome. And yes, we'll do that. we'll change it for next week for you, just for you. I don't know what I'm going to put up. Maybe you can come up with some suggestions and I'll do some background for you. Maybe you'd like us to support your team. I don't know. So, yeah, please keep your question coming. I'm just going to take a couple of questions I've had during the week. It's about Singletary. The first one was about how long do we think he's going to be out? Well, I was hoping 1 week, but that's got destroyed, I'm afraid. We are looking like it's going to be next week that he's going to be back. At least that's the hope. These Achilles/injuries tend to be a bit of a problem. Fingers crossed it is minor. That's been the talk. So next week would be the ideal and estimated timeline for his return. So hopefully that's the case. Somebody said to me about Gurley. I know Shani's asked the same question, but this is a slightly different version on that question about Gurley. Somebody said he played okay so far. Yeah, okay. But you picked him round 2. Are you happy with that? He's been okay. Are the touchdowns then? Look at the tape. You've got to be honest and realistic. If you can sell. Because that's the key here. If you want to get an edge in fantasy, is to get ahead of the curve, and that sometimes means breakdowns. It's one of the most important things you can do in fantasy. I got another thing from Dennis. Thanks, Dennis. Love the accent. Thank you. Which area are you from? Grew up with Americans, so I can tell. First non-NFL fantasy question. No, it's not. It's a good one actually. Thanks, Dennis. I'm a Londoner actually through and through. If I'm honest, I grew up in London for most of my life until I turned into my sort of 30s. And then I started to travel around the country with my jobs at the time. So I've lived in a few different places in the UK. I've lived in Colchester in a place called West Mersey. A lovely little island, actually got cut off twice a day due to tides, which was beautiful. It was a lovely place to work actually up there. I've spent a bit of time in Cambridge for a couple of years, which was great fun. And now I've lived for the last 12 years here in sunny Daventry. It is effectively the dead centre of the UK, if you put a pin in the UK map. And it's dead. It literally is dead. There's nothing here. It could even be the death capital of the world. I don't know. It just seems to be a really bad place. Okay, so let's have a look. Are you going to the Raiders-Bears game London this year? Yeah. Money, I am going to the Bears and Raiders game this year. I want to see the Bears. Are you going yourself? And if you are going to the game, maybe we can find a way to hook up because that'd be great fun to see a member of the channel here. We'd love to see you. Would you pick up Chris Hendon this week, Iverts as tight end? Yeah, if he's free on waivers, Adam, absolutely take him. I mean, definitely worth stashing. Never not stash a player that's done quite well to start the year off with. TS, great question this. What do you think about scooping up Golden Tate off waivers before he comes back? Well, I'm not a big fan of Golden Tate. Save scooping him up. He should go in a doggy bag, to be perfectly honest with you. Golden Tate, well past his best. TS, surely there's better options out there, unless it's a very deep league. And if it is, then fair enough. I'm not a huge fan. I'm very worried about him, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, I wouldn't really waste much time on it. You've probably got better options, to be honest. I see a friend of mine lives near King's Cross. Oh, good. Well, that's fair enough. Yes, Dennis. Well, yeah, been down to King's Cross many a time. Went to many a nightclub down there in the day. So yeah, but that's an area. I love the old King's Cross. I live in Chicago. Bears fan. Wish I could go. Well, well, we'll be there on your behalf. How's that for you, Money? I'll tell you what I'll do on the night. I'll put a T-shirt on which has got your name on it. How's that, Money? I'm here for money. That sounds so bad, doesn't it? I'll probably end up not watching the game. I may be being chased. I don't know. It could be bad. Could be very bad in London. So yeah. So we'll definitely be watching that one. Here's another question from Dennis. Keep them coming, guys. We've got about 12 minutes left. It's your show. Throw those questions in. We've had some great watching tonight. Some fantastic questions and brilliant thumbs up. Can't thank you enough for it. It's been awesome. I have one more question regarding Melvin Gordon. I managed to pick him up, not considering this week, of course. You think they will plug him in the offense by next week, or do you think it is maybe 2 more weeks? No, I think they'll start next week. I think they won't plug him in. They said unless it's an emergency. So the truth of the matter is they're doing nothing with him this week. He'll sit. It won't be an emergency, so he'll just sit. Eckler will get the load this week. Then it'll go back probably to a more even split snaps for next week. So I think Eckler will get the majority. Justin Jackson might be back and take a little share, but it'll be a small share. And moving forward, it'll be what Eckler has always done. He's been a great player, actually. He scored 136 in standard last year. He should have a great night tonight, and he'll still be relevant moving forward because of the way that they use him in that offense. So it's a perfectly great question, one that's got great ramifications fantasy-wise. Then after this week, I moved the screen, do apologise. We'll see where it goes. Please keep your questions coming in or a result to my own. I think there's None yet, but I'm going to go back into the book of questions. Adams with turf toe. Now, this is quite interesting. So somebody's asked about the turf toe injury. What are our thoughts around that? Well, I think, to be honest with you, Devontae Adams should be fine. It's minor from all accounts. The trouble with turf toe, it's the ability to cut and turn. It has a lingering effect on a wide receiver. Green struggled with it a couple of years back, really mightily and badly for a couple of seasons. So hopefully it is minor. Adams had a great game, career game actually. Just needed a touchdown to cement what was a fantastic night. Anyway, 180 yards. So I don't think this is going to hamper him. I do think he's going to be back. There's 10 days between when he played and when he'll start next week. Plenty of time. I don't think he'll be too hampered. And if it does affect him 1 or 2 looks, that's not bad, really, is it? So let's have a look at questions coming in. We've got this. Shani, do you think Buffalo can take down the Pats? Well, it's the best situation they've had for a very long time, Shani. They're both 3-0 teams. I think Buffalo, the only way they can win this one, I was hoping Singletary would be available because I think he's an X factor. I really do. And I think New England would struggle against him. I think their team without him is a little one-dimensional. It's going to come down onto Allen's shoulders. And you know New England and Bill Parcells, they are notoriously good at taking away what you do well. So I'm going to say a big thumbs down for this week. No, I don't think they can compete. I don't even think they can keep it close, if I'm honest. I think New England will blow them out. And it's not because Bills aren't improved. They certainly are. But it's just they have so many weapons. You know, and New England, who's going to rate against them? It's horrible to keep talking about. But there you go. Somebody said here, Money says, I think Buffalo can win. They've been great against Brady, but I wouldn't bet on it. Well, I like your thinking. Good thinking there, buddy. Well, I'm going to tell you straight, I think it's a no. Okay, so we got Raymond here. Hello, Raymond. Nice to have you on board. Please like and subscribe, Raymond, if you're new to the channel. We are still going live for another 8 minutes. You've got time to throw more questions in, but here's your question. Chris Carson versus the Cardinals, Rodell Williams versus the Lions, or pick up McCoy versus the Lions? I would go, funny enough, I would go with Darrell Williams this week. I'll tell you what my problem is. Carson's been fumbling really badly. McCoy worries me because of injury. So I take Darrell Williams because of that situation out of the 3. And it's an interesting 3, but that's the route I would go down this week. I just think Carson's got a lot to prove. And I wouldn't be, you know, I've got to roll with him in a couple of leagues. I've got no choice. I haven't got that kind of depth available. We're in big leagues, 16-man league or more. So I can't not roll him in. And he worries me a lot because those fumbles, they're the quickest way to the doghouse, frankly, and I'm really concerned about him. Here's a good question from Andy. This looks like another new person. So hi, Andy. Welcome. If you are new, like, subscribe, and please, for God's sake, you know, click the bell because you'll know when we're going live again. So we will be back next week, same time, 4:45, 20 to 5, right the way through, 15, 20 minutes before the start of the show tonight, before the football kicks off. So here's Andy's question. With Stafford being questionable in the run-up to tonight's game, would you advise playing him in a game where there should be a lot of back and forth versus Kansas, or go with Kyler Murray? I think Stafford will play, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that questionable tag is, I don't think he's 50-50 at all. I think he's more likely going to play, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that's being optimistic and cautious. I wouldn't roll with Kyler Murray at the moment. There's too many unknowns. I don't like the situation there. So no, I'm sticking with the veteran here over the rookie at the moment. He will be good, Kyler Murray, but we'll have to wait and see when he's at his best. Let's have a look at some of your other questions. We've got quite a few coming in, so thank you for those. Should I start the Patriots defense versus the Bills? Yeah, I mean, they've done brilliantly so far this year. Why not? I mean, it's the best defense in football at the moment. They've got 2 great games coming up after this week. They're on a high. Their morale is through the roof. It's Bill Parcells. They know what to do. They know how to shut down the best part of teams. I'm really liking their opportunity again tonight. So we'll see. Here's Al from America who says this. We play together in high-stakes leagues. Should we play Josh Allen? Thanks, Josh Allen against the Pats, or Dalton at the Steelers? Let's go Dalton at the Steelers, Al. Stick in Dalton this week. Yeah, it's a very high-stakes league, gentlemen, if you're watching, and ladies. Thanks for subscribing for those that have, Raymond. Appreciate that sub last week. Thank you, buddy. That's very, very kind. Yes, that's what I would do tonight, Al. Let's go Dalton. Let's take Allen out of the equation. I'm a bit concerned that the Pats know what to do to shut him up. So these are critical questions that we've all got. We're into the last 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go back to the book and pull up another question. This one is about, again, about Saquon Barkley. A lot of questions on him. Could this injury linger more than 6 to 8 weeks? Absolutely, yes. no matter what the optimism is, no matter what the timetable for Saquon Barkley, we start the show with him, no matter what the optimism, you have to be very, very cautious. This is a 50-50 re-aggravating kind of injury. They are horribly, notoriously difficult. I mean, the young man, give him credit, has been nothing but brilliant, frankly. I mean, in a bad team, he's been nothing but brilliant. The injury is unfortunate, but we did warn you before the start of the season. This was a possibility because teams could gang tackle him and get on him. And I hate to say that because you don't want to lose stud players, not the way we have. But that's a reality of the situation the Giants are in. So tank if you want, but it's a massive worry. Here's another great question coming in. On Monday, I traded Cooper Kupp and Aaron Jones and got Melvin Gordon and Tyrell Williams. Well, I think you did very well there, Raymond. You know, I mean, I think you're gonna miss out this week. Obviously, you're gonna miss out because of Melvin Gordon won't do much this week, and Tyler Boyd is a little bit, all over the place. But I think long term, I think Melvin Gordon has always been elite, frankly, and he will be elite. The Chargers need it, clearly. Eckler's good, but he's a spot part player. He does that little bit of damage because Melvin Gordon takes away all the threat. That's what Eckler does best, is he's able to feed off that. When teams are having to deal with Melvin Gordon, then suddenly you can come in and really, really do it. So let's see here. I have Eckler right now in my start line. Well, that's the perfect scenario. I mean, you got the win-win there. You can start Melvin Gordon and Eckler. That's the beautiful thing next week. You can start both if you need a flex play because they're both capable of points. That's the beauty of it, and you're probably going to get all the running touchdowns. So you're laughing your head off with that situation. I absolutely love it, to be honest. So it's a great situation to be in that. So well done. A little bit iffy on Tyler Boyd this year, but it's a sophomore slump. They do actually occur. It is a reality, unfortunately, of fantasy football. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we're into the last 3 minutes. This is your show. If you've got any more questions, get them in. We will answer them. Even if we hit the 60-minute mark, we'll carry on until we finish the final question. So get them in. We're still about 15 to 20 minutes away from the NFL night starting. This is a big week fantasy-wise for a lot of people. This is a must-win week for some. And, you have to, after this week, if you're 0-4, it is time, if you're going to, redraft, no option but to go for it, which means selling players, trying to sell your best value piece for a couple of pieces, try and reignite your teams. Because from 0-4, the odds of reaching the playoffs are less than 5% in fantasy leagues, no matter what format. It gets worse for bigger leagues. So, it's tough out there, no doubt about that. So it is your show. We've got a couple of minutes left. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, get those questions in. Let's see what you've got. If not, I'll go back to the book. Let me just quickly check if I've missed anything. I think we're up to date so far. Let me go back into the book very quickly, just see what else we've got. I've got a question about Aaron Rodgers. Last week, this was about... obviously, he had a good Thursday night game. Is this now the new Aaron Rodgers? No, I'm afraid not. It isn't. Unfortunately, the way that the Packers are setting up is a bit of an issue. They're playing quite conservative in some ways. I'm a bit concerned about the uses of Aaron Jones, but I hope in the nicest way now they will unleash him a bit more because he's been brilliant near the goal line and he helps Aaron Rodgers a great deal. I'd like to see them unleash a bit of the game a bit more. They've been a bit too conservative for my liking, and they got found out this week, which is a shame. So let's see how it goes moving forward. But it looks that this is the format they think that can take them into the playoffs. I can't dispute it. It's a good format, and it certainly works for them. But I think they need to keep the key player on this is Aaron Jones. Keep him in the game and give him more chances because he's been brilliant, frankly, I think. In sometimes limited action, he's been excellent. Okay, we've got more questions here. So Darrell Williams over Chris Carson, I get it. Thank you. Thank you for the insight and advice. I'll see you next week. Thank you, Money. Really appreciate that. We're into the last minute. If you've got a final question, it's your time to get it in because the show will end. Bang on 60 minutes unless there is a question. I'm going to give one more from the book and then just check if there's any other final questions. Right, so, it's a question around my biggest bet of the week, really. What would I do this week? What do I think? I think you've got to go with the Rams this week. If you're going to pick one team out to win convincingly and beat their point spread, it would be the Rams. That's the one I'd go with. Let's have a look at this. Thank you for the insight. Raymond has played. I played Devontae Adams and Zach Ertz so far. He's done really well, actually. Your team looks really good, Raymond. Big thumbs up from us here. That's a massively good-looking team. You've got Adams as well as Ertz. You're pretty well set for the fantasy season ahead. And you look like you've got a team that's going to contend quite deep into the playoff run, I suspect. I think with the team that you've mentioned, you would probably have started very well 2-1 or 3-0 by the looks of it. Very unlikely you've started 0-3 or 1-2, that's for sure. We are at the 60-minute mark. There is no final questions. I'm just checking. Oh, thank you very much for subbing. Have a good Sunday, everybody. We'll see you from the Fan Pub very, very soon. All the best for your fantasy scores this week, unless you're Al, if you're playing me. And good luck to everybody out there. All the very best, and we'll see you next week on the show. Good luck.